So I work for Stantec Consulting, and it's an international architecture and engineering firm. We're based up in Canada, in Edmonton, and we have one of our largest offices in the western U.S. is here in Irvine. Again, that's also a couple blocks away, which is kind of unique. But I basically am the lead PR representative for our western U.S. offices. So that's about 35 different offices and about 3,000 professionals. And without getting too much into the nuts and bolts of it, it's exactly what it sounds like. We have architects that help design buildings that are, breaking the barriers and what people think of when they talk about sustainability. A lot of you might have heard the term LEED certified design. That's very much what my company does very well. We specialize in creating buildings that they call net zero energy efficient, so they actually, through solar panels and other innovative tools, generate the same amount of energy that they use, and so they're quickly become an expert in a global sense for their ability to create structures like that. So, and this is just so you know kind of what it looks like. I'm a part of a team of 4 people. We have 1 person, soon to be 2 up in Canada, and then I have 2 counterparts here in the U.S. East. And you can kind of see some of my offices under my big pasty head. So one of the things that I kind of like to just get at right away is, where are you going to use writing in public relations? Because to be honest, there are still, even though they have entire courses that are devoted to the craft here, a lot of people still are under the impression that maybe it's something you can sidestep, or something that you don't really need to become that proficient, or even better yet, it's something that I can learn later in my career. So just a couple of the examples. Media relations. I think that you guys have all taken some type of course in pitching, stories, writing these releases. Have you guys all at least done some of the fundamental stuff to that effect? Okay. One of the things that it's probably one of the first places you'll use your writing skills in public relations is your ability to, and it sounds dumb, but write an email that's going to capture the interest of a reporter. You have to keep in mind that most reporters, on average, receive 200 to 300 emails a day from people like me who are hoping to capture their interest. And for every 300 emails they get, they maybe have, room to do something with 3 of them. I think I read the other day the statistics about news releases. 9 out of every 10 get thrown away when they get sent to a newsroom. Reason why is people don't take the time to learn what it is that particular type of publication or media outlet might actually be interested in. They don't take the time to proofread their work. Sometimes it's very obvious that they're not paying attention to the AP style. So it's very easy, when you have these overworked, underpaid reporters, for them to get really frustrated when they receive material from the public relations industry. And on a side note, you may or may not know this, but everybody in the media sector assumes that everybody in PR is making like 6 figures. And so there's already a little bit of resentment when they're dealing with us. When you're doing PR, writing is one of the things where you can't fake it. You can make your way through 30 seconds on a phone call with a reporter and go on the phone with like your 6 talking points that you know about them, but you really can't write about something that you don't fully understand. And so I think it's through writing that I've actually had the opportunity to learn so much more about different industries. And that's one of the fun things about PR is you really become a jack of many trades. You understand a lot of different industries. I mean, after working in PR for 5 years, there's never like a professional networking event that you'll go to where you won't have some piece of knowledge about some industry. So you'll have something to talk about with everybody, because in writing you really have to become a student again, to a certain respect. And you get better at doing it quickly. And one of the things that you have to do in all of these, I think that becomes so crucial, is being able to think like the audience for which you're writing for, and anticipate how they may react to something you're writing. Internal communications, executive communications. I'll show you some examples of this in a minute. Writing is one of the best ways to build relationships with upper management, because I will tell you this, most people who become powerful CEOs of companies really aren't good at writing. They might be good verbal communicators, but most of them really don't do that well because they've always been surrounded by people who can support them in that regard. And it's really not what they're supposed to be good at, to be honest. But, I don't know how many times I've become, fairly close professional companions with executives of large companies because they know they can trust me to help them articulate really difficult messages like, guess what, entire employee workforce, we're having a salary freeze, and I feel very bad about this, but this is the way it is because of the economy. It's a very difficult message, and it's another one of those things you have to communicate in just the right way. Otherwise, you can have a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of ill will. And also just, writing speeches and other communications for these folks. Internal communications, a lot of you, if you work in what they call an in-house profession, that's where I am right now as opposed to where I was before in the agency sector. Internal communications, newsletters, your company might have an intranet that has content that constantly needs to be updated. Again, writing is one of those things that will make you stand out, and it's something that people understand too. Because your parents are never going to know what it is you do for a living. Just let me tell you that right now. My parents have no idea what it is I do. I've tried to tell them it's advertising, but it's not, and and that's their perception. But everybody understands writing. Everybody understands that that's a tangible deliverable that you can provide. I said speeches, marketing copies. Sometimes you might be involved in writing things for. You might support an advertising campaign, even though we're not in the advertising industry. You sometimes get to help contribute to that. Newsletters. This one, holy crap, strategic communications. It's one thing, I forgot who it was that said this, but there's a quote, I think it was actually, it was Grant who said this, that the person who can show me how will always be useful, but the person who can tell me why will always have a job. What does that mean? You guys are all going to become proficient at writing news releases and doing press kits and doing a lot of the fundamental guts of what you have to create with your writing skills. It's a whole other skill set to be able to explain to somebody why you want to do that. When you work for an agency, when you work for any public relations role you have, you are going to have to report to somebody. And you're going to have to be able to very clearly articulate why your job is important and why what you're recommending is valuable to the organization. And 9 times out of 10, most executives, you guys, at this point, they don't care about press. I mean, they kind of do, but you need to explain it. I mean, for most people, a deliverable, your job is not justified because you can get a company on the front cover of a newspaper every once in a while. You're justified because you can explain why or how that's actually benefiting their business. And I've had people, I've interviewed a ton of people who had been 6, 7 years into their career. When I was in the agency sector, we would ask them to write a PR plan, and they had no idea what that was. They had no idea what to do. And consequently, like 30, 40 years ago, it used to be very common for a lot of journalists to make the transition into public relations, and that doesn't happen as much now for that reason. Because they know how to write, and they know how to work with the media, but they don't really know how to sell it. As an example, this is not a traditional PR plan, but for my job at Stantec, I was one of 30 people that was interviewed. I got narrowed down to 14. There were 3 people that were finalists, and the last part of that job was I had to go in, and it was seriously like a piece of clip art for fear of public speaking. Like I had to go into a long boardroom, and for some reason it was a long boardroom, and there was 4 of us. And they were at the other end, and I was out here in my suit, but I had to put together a plan. I had to put together a plan explaining what I would do for them if they hired me. And from what I understand, they ripped through this word for word. And it was about how I articulated not just what I do, but why I do it and why it's valuable. And just so you know, that's not going to be something a lot of people expect to do, like their first 2 years out of college. But take every opportunity to learn about this. If you're working somewhere and you hear about somebody writing a communications plan, ask to look at it. It's going to do 2 things. 1, you'll learn something from it, and 2, it's a real compliment to you as a professional to show interest in that process, especially early on.